Exciting to see so many people jump on this webinar. We've been promoting it, excited to have the group together today, and looking forward to our discussion. I'll introduce the people that will be part of the discussion, kind of leading the discussion with me today. We'll go ahead and get started in just a minute, but excited to have both Jonathan and Jim with me here today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Again, we're super excited to be able to have all of you on with us. Just want to briefly do a brief introduction as to, again, what the topic of our discussion is going to be today. The title of this presentation or this discussion that we're going to have, we've entitled it Managing Compliance in an Online World. We have all seen social media has completely transformed our industry. It completely changed the landscape of direct sales. Social media has also been one of the key drivers. When I look at a lot of the companies and the clients that I've worked with, it's been a massive success tool to really drive and fuel growth over the years for those companies that have really, adopted it and done so effectively. With that comes the concern that comes as it pertains to a variety of different compliance challenges that comes with the use of social media. We've seen it create a lot of risk and exposure to some of our clients that we've worked with throughout the years. And so what we've done is we brought together two different experts as it pertains to both compliance and social media to discuss what we're seeing in the space. And really being proactive in what we're doing in regards to compliance and the use of social media. So with that, I want to briefly introduce those of us that are on the call today. I'll start with myself just to quickly introduce who I am. My name is JJ Oswald, and I am the Senior Vice President of Sales here at Verb Technology. I've been a part of the industry for now close to 20 years, and my role is working with some of our largest clients here at Verb. We work with more than 100 different direct selling companies in providing sales enablement and digital technology solutions. Let me now introduce Jonathan Gilliam, founder and CEO of Momentum Factor. Many of you may not know this, but Jonathan's actually written two different books, one entitled Social Selling and Blast Off. And so he brings with him, a lot of background not only as it pertains to social media, but also his expertise as it pertains to, the compliance space as well. And so just for those of you that don't really know him, I've gotten to know him really well over the last several years. His firm Momentum Factor is the leading brand and risk mitigation firms in the industry. His platform delivers. Many of you are using FieldWatch, which is an incredible product. It's the leading global online brand protection and compliance monitoring software that's provided within the direct sales space. So, Jonathan, we're super excited to have you on the call today, and looking forward to hearing from you. We also have Jim Lupkin. Yeah, we also have Jim Lupkin with us as well. I want to just briefly introduce him. He has spent years developing really the ideal framework for what he calls the 7 C's of the predictive social media system. So Jim has spent a lot of his time in his career training distributors on how to harness the power of social media and really helping them grow their teams and acquire customers through social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and more. His framework for success withstands the turbulent and ever-changing social media climate. And he has authored the book Predictive Social Media, where he shares his insights into the 7 C's of predictive social media and that system. And in fact, we're giving away that book to the first 50 attendees of this webinar. And so we'll be reaching out to those of you that were able to jump on first and make sure that we get the information needed to be able to send that book to you. So with that, we're super excited to have both Jonathan and Jim with us today. Good morning, guys. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into this. I want to begin by just quickly talking about just the general landscape of what's happening within the direct sales space. I know as we started the webinar this morning, I kind of talked about really what's happening within the industry as it pertains to social media. Again, many companies are really growing. We're also seeing with it a lot of challenges as it pertains to general, what's happening in the regulatory climate or standpoint from that standpoint. So I want to just maybe start by both Jim and Jonathan, both of you kind of describing what you're seeing in the space, what's working, what are some of the things that you're seeing. Jonathan, let's start with you. Give us kind of a quick overview of what you're seeing and what our audience here listening today needs to be aware of.
Sure. Thanks, JJ. And thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. I love these things. And your series has been really awesome. And not just because I'm on it. It's fun to watch you with your various guests. Sorry, I thought I had my do not disturb on. That's what hasn't changed in the last few years, right? So first we have, an increased scrutiny over the years with the FTC getting tighter and tighter on the industry, looking for companies to target. And then we have the pandemic that arrives, and which ends up being a boost for sales for the industry as people stayed at home, but also became a very, very hot point for regulators to ensure that field representatives weren't using the economic collapse or the pandemic to sell. And they were very, very serious about that. So they got really bold about how they regulate, throwing out letters, fees for income, for claims, many different approaches on how to regulate companies. Add to that the massive increase in social selling because everybody was at home, and that moving into live streaming, influencer marketing. We're in a new world even from 5 years ago, even since the development of social media, as things have become more and more direct, more and more live, more and more video based. So as far as regulation and compliance, that's always every new platform is a new potential risk for most companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, as I've worked with a lot of my clients, there's just almost this heightened awareness. They're seeing it and they're feeling it and making adjustments because of it. Jim, let's turn some time over to you. What are you seeing as you've interacted with some of your clients? What are you seeing that's working within the field as it pertains to social media, kind of from a broader standpoint?
Well, first of all, JJ, thanks for having me as well. Definitely going to enjoy this. And it's really great to connect with Jonathan here and kind of look at this from a compliance and social media merging together type of conversation. So the landscape of the direct sales industry that I see that it has changed a lot in the last few years. And I also see that some things haven't changed at all. And what I would do is I would challenge you to look at it in three ways. The first way is existing companies and distributors, they have been forced to do social media. So over the last 3 years, distributors could not go out and do it the way that they were used to doing it, which was primarily face-to-face. And now they're forced to build relationships through social media. And the reason they gravitated towards social media and not other online activities is because social media is the way online that is similar to building your business face-to-face. And so, these existing companies and distributors, again, are forced to do social media. I've seen companies not do too well because they were so into face-to-face. I've seen companies that were doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue drop by 30%, which is pretty significant. And it's because they weren't ready for this social media movement. One story comes to mind is a friend of mine in the Philippines, 7-figure income earner per year. She built her entire business face-to-face, and now all of a sudden, social media. This is someone that is in her mid-20s. So you would think she's already savvy with social media, but she wasn't. Very, very nervous. She thought her business was going to collapse. Here, she's having the best time of her life because she's realizing that it's much easier on social media. Another way I want you to look at it is there's a lot more people that are wanting to work from home now. In the United States alone, about 100 million Americans want to stay at home and work. Well, how many of those could become distributors? Huge opportunity. And then the third is, I think the industry has stayed the same in that the way that companies become successful is because of relationships and influence, and that combination. It's been going on for 60 plus years, and I'm sure we all have a lot of examples. And that still happens today, but now it is happening primarily through social media. So it's been 3 years since the pandemic started. I think right now that direct sales companies that got it right are growing by leaps and bounds faster than they ever have before, because for the first time in the history of direct sales, we can scale word of mouth at an unprecedented number because you can reach so many people so quickly on social media.
Yeah, I love it. And I've seen the exact same thing. Some of our clients that we've worked with for close to 20 years, and having to see them, evolve and pivot at times, to stay with the trends. We use the phrase a lot within the clients that we work with of leveraging what we call a high tech plus a high touch approach to building the business. And so being willing to adopt, platforms, social media and other digital solutions while maintaining the high touch, approach to, where relationship driven approach to building the business that we know is needed. And so we've seen that as well. And, it's critical to imperative that companies are willing to adopt and pivot as needed. Jonathan, let's move over to you now, and let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing as it pertains to both the FDA and the FTC as it pertains to claims. At times I think we're seeing that they're both collectively, aligning themselves and kind of working together, in their enforcement processes. I'd also love to have you maybe talk about a little bit about the small nuances between both an expressed and an implied claim as well. So do you want to maybe just spend a few minutes talking through those topics?
Sure. So we know that the FTC and FDA are very concerned about false advertising, what they call misleading advertising. And that very much pertains to our business because our reps are online and they're basically advertising. So they're concerned about claims about products that aren't real, that are not typical. They're really concerned about income claims, join my team, make $1 million a year, that kind of stuff, lifestyle claims, picture of me in front of a boat because you can have this too. All of that is very, very sensitive, and it's been tightening up more and more, especially since the pandemic. So, you alluded to the FTC and the FDA coming together. They're comparing notes. The FTC is becoming more enforcement focused. Traditionally in the past, they've worked with companies to kind of figure out, well, maybe you shouldn't do this. They were just a little bit more amenable to working with companies. But their recent more aligning with the FTC makes them a little bit more, I would say hostile, but assertive in how they come at companies. So, and the FTC as well is now focusing on product claims too. So there's a little bit of that. There's also some joining up with the EU and the EU regulatory enforcement. So a lot of this mind sharing with regulations, which probably means more enforcement, tighter scrutiny, those kinds of things. So there's this trend to really stem this flow of false ads. It's not just in our industry, it's all industries. But it's particularly problematic for us because we have all these people who are independent contractors saying things that the company's on the hook for. So so I think that's the problematic space. It can be managed, of course. And then when you ask about express claims, it's not just about join my team, make $1 million. It's what is the net impression of this claim? If someone says, you know what, I lost 25 pounds, I'm also taking this product. I didn't say the product would do it, but the impression is that product is going to lead me to lose 25 pounds, right? So that's kind of where you run into some more of the nuance, as you mentioned. The FTC is also focused on dark patterns. So patterns in software that create an action from a user that they didn't really intend. So this could apply to auto ships that don't cancel, those kinds of things. Things that kind of trick a customer into spending money with a company is also problematic. So they're really focusing on all these consumer focused problems that actually do exist, and many companies are exploiting technology and other ways to kind of pull money out of people, right?
That's great. One other comment that I think would be interesting for our listeners today, and those that are watching this, talk about not only what's happening in North America, and we've talked specifically FDA, FTC, but you kind of briefly mentioned Europe. What are you seeing outside in some of the international markets that you're servicing?
Traditionally it's been all over the map, but in the EU, there's much more of a joint effort to stem misleading advertising. They are much more focused there on misleading ads in general, not just in the space. FTC is very focused on the space, like they're actually going after companies in space. But out there, they just want everyone to tell the truth. It could be a travel company, who's claiming a trip that isn't really what they say it is. Yep. And so the direct sellers are just a part of that. But they're serious. And the thing about Europe is they'll just fine you and they'll just go, okay, you did this thing, you got to pay us money. There's no suite of lawyers and there's no, congressman you can go to and line things up to really attack them. It just happens there, which is good and bad, right? You it's kind of judge and jury and executioner, and there's little defense, but they're also not trying to put companies out of business necessarily. So like the FTC might be. So it's a different approach, but that mind share between the two is really something. And I think we should expect more interesting things coming out of both in the future.
Yeah, that's helpful insights. I had some interesting conversations just this week with some customers that are in Europe, that kind of heightened awareness, and certainly you could sense the concern, and we're obviously feeling it here in the US as well as it pertains to the FDA, FTC, both income and product claims. All right, Jim, let's move over to you for just a minute. And I'd love to have you just spend a few minutes talking about what you're seeing in social media, what's hot, what's trending as it pertains to what's working within the field.
That's a really good question. I would recommend first that companies and distributors, we don't get into what I would call surface level trends or what's new, because the reality is they change a lot. Things such as Facebook Lives, or I need my video to be 1 minute long, because what happens is it feels like you can't keep up because there's constantly something that's going to make the experience better. What I would do is I would encourage everyone to look at the heart of social media, and let's get in front of that trend, because then you can really poise your company and distributors to really be a leader in this space. And what's happening right now at the heart or soul of social media is this interest graph versus social graph. And so the social graph is what started social media. I've been doing social media for business since 1995. So I'm 26 years in. And since I could remember the very beginning all the way up until now, all of these social media platforms are built on connecting you to people you went to high school with, college with, your current city, people that you would connect with in the real world. And that is what the social graph is designed to do. And with the social graph, it helps all these distributors build relationships very quickly, online, all around the country and world. Well, what is happening is the interest graph is becoming very dominant. And how do we know that? TikTok. TikTok has become a beast. And it's become a beast because instead of them building their platform based on what you call the social graph, they're building it based on the interest graph. And what that means is if your distributors create a TikTok account or company, they're going to connect you to the people that you have similar interests to. You may not even have connected with them in the real world, but you have similar interests. For example, you may have similar interests in being really healthy. So they're going to connect you to other people that are also into being healthy. The same thing with skincare and energy, et cetera. That is very, very, very powerful because the interest graph, as a distributor, being able to connect with people that would most likely buy my product, and I can do it through relationships, is explosive. Now, is that replicating across other social media platforms? It is. YouTube is now adding something called Shorts. Facebook is adding something called Reels, and Instagram too. That means they're putting the TikTok functionality on their own platforms. Will the social graph disappear? No, but the interest graph is becoming powerful. And so as a company and distributor, you have to take a serious interest in how do you get your distributors to connect with other people that have similar interests. That will create a long-term success, because that is where the whole world of social media is moving to. And I think it comes down to this, if I sum this all up. If you look at TikTok as an example, look at how many followers these people are getting. The biggest one has over 150 million followers. Many people have 30,000, 100,000 followers, and they're doing it almost what feels like overnight. And they're not doing it by spending money on ads. They're doing it by producing content that creates interests. Now, these people that are creating these followings, they're either creating their own product lines and selling their own skincare with their name on it, or they're partnering up with companies that will pay them to endorse their products. So how does a direct sales company and distributors become competitive in this new world? It really comes down to creating a roadmap that guarantees success for the distributors, a very structured system that allows them to convert. What I see out there is 1 in 5. 1 in 5 every prospects turn into a customer and or distributor. And if you can create something like that, that will allow you to take advantage of this hot and not upcoming trend. It's already started.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of leaders that I know that are building within the field, and specifically TikTok. Obviously, Facebook and Instagram have been broadly adopted, at least in North America, especially, and have been big driving forces. I talked to one client. You know, you looked at their growth chart, went like this, and it literally went straight up. You know, after some certain elements were introduced, specifically Facebook Live being one of them, we're seeing now TikTok is being more broadly adopted and used. It's funny, I just had a conversation this week with my wife, and we're comparing our feeds within TikTok, and where you're talking about, you know, what their algorithms are doing as it pertains to interest, right? And whether, you know, whether it's hobbies or interests or political influences, even what she sees versus what I see are super interesting to see how that's working. But they do align really well to help drive growth if you're plugging in and using it effectively. With that, let's move over back to you, Jonathan, and just maybe talk about some of the challenges that we're seeing within social media as it pertains to, you know, just general compliance. Obviously, you know, the platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are great platforms to drive growth, but it is also an easy place for the FTC and the FDA to be able to find, you know, claims. A lot of risk is involved there. What are you seeing as it pertains to those types of platforms and ways that we can mitigate some of that risk?
Well, I love this because we're moving from the fun stuff that Jim's talking about to the scary stuff that I'm talking about, and it's nicely balanced. So I think we're covering both ends of it. And I think the point of that is that, you know, the industry is now digital, right? We are a digital landscape in this space. The pandemic really accelerated that, as Jim alluded to earlier. It's really not in person as much anymore. People are at least using social selling, but also being driven by social media and the new platforms. So I think, you know, in general, obviously, social media provides a great opportunity for distributors to make connections and sell products and build their businesses. But with that opportunity comes, you know, great risk. I mean, we are under the microscope. Improper income claims, product claims, health claims, brand erosion, influencers that go off the rails. That's regularly made. You know, these kinds of claims are regularly made by the field through these channels, and each of them is the responsibility of the company. You can't just let a distributor make a claim and let it sit out there. And I think most of us on this call are sophisticated and know that. But they're monitoring channels for violations, which can result in a warning letter or a major penalty. The Penalty Offense Authority rule set up a $43,000 charge per violation for claims made online, and they have implemented that. So even business closures, obviously, we've had some of the big lawsuits where they're trying to actually put companies out of business. United Wealth being a recent one where the FTC lost its bid against them to put them out of business, but also the attack on the company cost it a majority of its field and essentially a shell of what it was. So it's a real risk. It's not just happening to them, it's happening in our space. So, you know, to answer your question, I think, you know, they're reviewing all the channels, even newer platforms like Clubhouse and others that are on the rise, TikTok, as Jim had pointed out, for claims both public and private groups as well. They're getting into private groups. They're looking at very, very old posts, things that wouldn't seem fair. Like if a post can't be taken down because a rep left it up, they'll still add it and they'll still look at it and add it to a case. So it's just really important to be really vigilant about managing and making sure that reps are trained and educated about what they can and can't do. They're also, I think the update on FTC is they're looking to establish new rulemaking, and that applies to not only income claims and such, or pyramid scheme claims, but gig worker mistreatment, you know, deception about pay, unfair contracts, anti-competitive wage fixing. Maybe it's deceptive or misleading earnings claims and endorsements that are outside the space. Fake reviews are something that they're really focusing on. Dark patterns, which are misleading. You know, users do something that they didn't intend to do, as I mentioned earlier. So all of this will really impact influencers, gig economy, cryptocurrency plays, you know, cannabis sellers, which many of those are in our space, e-commerce, and others. So it's a minefield, but you know, people are still doing business in it.
Yeah. Well, I love what you and your company have developed as it pertains to providing some monitoring solutions. I mean, that task of, I can imagine those compliance departments that are, asked to deal with what's going on in that environment. Of course, we need to adopt it, and we know that it's working to drive revenue, but at the same time, it brings with it that risk and exposure. And so I love what you're doing with Field Watch and, and some of those solutions that are provided within the space that will help with that. Let's now move over back to you, Jim. Let's spend a few minutes maybe talking about the day in the life of, the different teams and different leaders that you've been working with over the years, and what are you seeing that's working? Maybe describe the day in the life of somebody that leverages social media to build their business that drives a lot of success.
I love this question because if you look at what makes a direct sales company successful, it is the success of the distributors. And sometimes people think, well, different countries, you have to build a different way. So the day in the life is different based on product category, based on where you live in the world. At this point, I've worked with distributors and companies in about 107 countries. It's always been the same. It's always been the same, which is the core. You got to build relationships. You got to create influence. And then when the life experience happens, they're going to do business with you. So then how does that translate into the day in the life? What we first have to agree on is every distributor, they need to follow what I call a set of processes, timing, and sequences. And they need to do it in a very specific order every day to ensure that success happens for everybody. And if you take those three words, it's called a system. The day in the life of a distributor, it can't be based on a distributor's personality, because then only distributors with certain personalities are going to succeed. Mm-hmm. Every distributor needs to be successful just by following a very specific set of things, no matter what their background is, no matter what their contacts are, etc. And so what I'll share with you is just a very, very high level. This is probably like an 8-hour long conversation on like what exactly, if you break it down, but at a very, very high level, this is what it is. Let's say that I was a distributor for a company. I would wake up. The first thing I would want to do is enact what I call community. Community basically is I'm trying to create a national convention conference atmosphere every single day on social media, because I know if I took my friend to a national conference for a direct sales company, the odds of them probably doing business increases astronomically because they feel all the energy and social proof. I want to create that online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a post in for example, a Facebook group that the company is running, not a distributor, but the company runs. And I'm going to do a post in there. Then I'm going to spend 10 minutes commenting and replying in that group, because I need to be part of the social proof that's happening. Then I'm going to move the conversation. So depending on if I'm making a spare time, part-time, or full-time income, I'll either do 10, 20, or 30 conversations a day. These conversations need to happen one-on-one. It's not about doing a post out to the masses. I got to talk to my friends one-on-one about this business, but it'll be 10, 20, or 30 a day. Then each day, I'm going to check on my conversations, and depending on where they are, I'm going to do my next follow-up. Then I'm going to move to connection. Again, 10, 20, or 30 connections a day, because the reality is I'm going to run out of people to talk to. And so I need new friends. On Facebook, for example, you can easily have 5,000 friends on Facebook that you have a real connection with. If you're converting 1 in 5, we're talking 1,000 personal customers for a distributor. That's pretty mind-blowing to consider. So I would reach out to 10, 20, or 30 new people every single day based on what income level I'm trying to achieve. And then I would finish it up with communication, which is basically follow-up. And so I would either do a personal post or a business post to all of my friends, depending on what day I'm in. I would then follow up with everyone that liked and commented on my post from the previous day to have a one-on-one conversation with them. I would like and comment and reply to all my friends' posts, as well as reply to their stories, because I want to show them that I care about them. I'm not just trying to get them to do business with me. I would do my happy birthdays. That takes less than 5 minutes. And I would check my notifications. Now, that is what I literally do every single day. Now, to do this every day, it's really important that me as a distributor, I need to understand how to first break through all my personal fears. That's a big thing that distributors need to work through, because if I have a fear of rejection, I'm not going to talk a certain way when I'm doing conversations. I'm going to be too fearful.
Mhm.
Two, I have to understand what my core values are. I can't be in direct sales company trying to make all the money. I have to be there because my core values are aligned with the company. It will make me work harder for the company than just worrying about money all the time. It also, with my core values, I will talk differently online than I would if I'm just about making money. Like if I'm core values, I'm not gonna, it will be hard for me to make income claims and lifestyle claims if I'm focused on my core values, as an example.
Yeah.
The other is I have to know how to build relationships online, because if not, you're going to be a marketer and you're going to be doing things that will probably get you in trouble with compliance. And then the last is, and this is why we're all here, I need to understand compliance. I need to understand what I can say, what I can't say. And, you know, an example of that is if I go and do a post and say, I just lost 25 pounds, and you can lose it too, you're going to get in trouble. You know, you're making this claim. But if I'm doing a post that's more about, I'm feeling wonderful, I'm getting the healthiest version, I'm becoming the healthiest version of myself, I just finished a 2-mile hike, people are going to ask me, what are you doing? And then I'm going to have a private conversation with them and talk to them about my business. So it's following these steps on a daily basis. Everyone should be able to be successful now with social media.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the key from what I'm hearing from what you just described in the daily life of a successful networker that's building their business through social media is consistency, right? And they're leveraging not only to attract conversations and opportunities to talk about the products or the business, but they're also they're using it as a means of acquiring additional customers, additional team members in just growing their audience. The other thing that I found is I work closely with top leaders in the space is where they understand not only the consistency, but also the frequency of injecting, you know, product information or creating, what I call attraction marketing type posts where they're posting, getting people to engage and ask a question like, hey, what are you doing? You look great. That hike that you kind of mentioned before. So those are really great. And what's for the audience that's listening and watching this today, the majority of your field that's growing their business online, you basically just described what they're doing. They're engaging. They're spending a lot of time there. And it is a very proven and effective way of building. Now, let's move back over to you, Jonathan. I want to maybe talk a little bit about the culture of some of the companies that we've worked with, specifically of building a culture of just general compliance and awareness. I've worked closely with a lot of different big brands and companies that we work with where I've been impressed, where both at a corporate level and at a field level, I've sensed that just general overall commitment to compliance in their efforts, and where they bought in and saying, I'm abiding by these processes, I'm using these disclaimers because I want to protect our brand. We worked so hard to develop what we've done, and I have seen and been super impressed where instead of skipping a disclaimer, they're touching on it, and for the very reason of, hey, they're embracing it, and they want to protect their company and they want to protect the brand. So what are you seeing, the customers that you've dealt with, what have they done to implement that type of and create that type of culture?
You know, that's, your observation is correct. There are a lot of companies who are really, really embracing, and they're seeing the advantage in embracing it, not just from a compliance standpoint, but almost from a competitive standpoint. If I'm a company, if I'm a representative of a company and this company has embraced compliance and ensuring that its message is pure and clean and doesn't get the company in trouble, that is almost a selling point for having someone join. People in this industry who are experienced know that companies can get in trouble and they don't want to risk their business either, right? So from the field standpoint, it's almost an advantage. And we've seen some companies just really embrace that message and make it a part of their pitch if they're talking to someone who's experienced and understands it. That culture really starts from the top down. And you'll find CEOs who are really aware of this environment and this issue, and really make it a point to have that message flow down through the corporate environment into the field. A lot of that begins with education, training, monitoring, proactive prevention. Those kinds of things, I think, really can lead to this stronger culture in general, having those messages coming through top leaders to their field. I mean, we know the field follows what their leaders do. And if the leaders really get it, then it will seep down. I think also the field needs to understand that compliance isn't really a roadblock to their success. It's actually a partner in their success. So a lot of compliance folks, you know, they end up being kind of the Department of No or the police, and that's kind of how they're viewed inside the organization. I think the whole organization.
Tug of war between sales and marketing and compliance, right? Always,
Right.
You know, yeah.
Right. It's you can't say that, you can't do that. And I think more and more those two are coming together, and marketing is realizing the importance of compliance, and compliance folks are realizing, you know, what they can and can't say, and what's really a hard barrier, and how to help the field understand what they can do rather than, you know, hammering the field. So I think those two trends have really come in the last few years. I also think, you know, proactive, easy to use, convenient education tools and training are really needed to get the field to buy in, and prevent violations before they ever happen, right? So the prevention piece is really important. How do you get in their heads? How do you get in there before they're typing out that, hey, make $1 million claim? You know, how do you prevent that in advance? I think, JJ, you're going to show a little demo later of your tool. So I think it's important to catch these violations as they occur through monitoring. It's also necessary to educate the field in order to prevent violations into the future. And
what are some specific ways you've seen that education, you know, process happen? Like, what are people doing to educate the field?
Learning management systems. We have an education system inside FieldWatch that's called Ethics Pro, where we can send a short video to say, hey, you made an income claim. You might want to just watch this video, go ahead and watch it, get certified that you watched it, and it actually is logged into their record. But a lot of companies are doing their own videos, maybe from the field. It's a multi-pronged approach. Their newsletters will carry a compliance corner in it, just to keep seeping that message out. Look, this is a real business. We have to protect it. Claims just can't be made that aren't true or aren't substantiated. So just join us and do that. Also on stage, I know a lot of the folks on this call speak regularly to their field live to help them understand what's important, what they can and can't say. The field wants to do the right thing. They don't want to. Mostly, for the most part, a lot of them are new and just don't know the rules. So that education consistently happening is really important.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen great success both at virtual events as well as in-person events, where there's a breakout or a general session segment where you're briefly touching on that, and that's been effective. And for us, you mentioned kind of the online, you know, LMS type of experiences. We provide a feature within our platform that really focuses on training and education, and majority of the pieces of content that we see in there are either business building steps or product education, but we're now seeing the majority of our companies are injecting also compliance into that area to help kind of foster that culture, and, you know, and the importance of that. Those are great tips. Appreciate that. Jim, let's come back to you. One final question for you that I want to run by you as it pertains to what you're seeing as far as what will the future of social media look like? You know, and where should the people that are listening and watching this today, where should they be? What should they be looking to do? And where do you see us? Where do you see this going the next year or two?
So I thought a lot about this because it could be scary, but there's also incredible opportunity for every direct sales company. The future of social media looks like this. It's going to be predictive. It's going to be very systematic. And how do I know that? Here's why. Every company, whether it's direct sales or non-direct sales, they all start with relationships. And in the first early stages of a company's growth, it's always relationships. But somewhere down the road, these companies move away from it and go into advertising and move away from word of mouth relationships. Direct sales doesn't do that. They stay in the word of mouth route. The reason they move away is because they can't look at the numbers and know if relationships, word of mouth is actually working or not, or if referrals is working. It's difficult to analyze that. And so they move away from it. In the direct sales industry, we stay in it because we know the power of relationships. But here is what's happening. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened this month. Walmart. Walmart is not an internet company. It's a brick and mortar company. It's been around for a long time. Walmart just launched a content creator program. What does that mean for all of us on this call? A content creator is another word of saying a distributor in direct sales. The correlations are almost identical. Walmart will now pay you 6% to 15% for referring Walmart products to your friends. You get paid. Walmart is now entering this space. Now, the future of social media. We, the direct sales industry, what we have been powerful with is this notion that we offer an opportunity for people to work from home. Now, Walmart is entering the space. Walmart is just the beginning. All the companies are going to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if the near future, you're going to see Target, you're going to see BMW, Mercedes, everyone's going to do it. And so it's very important that we as direct sales companies, we got to get predictive. Because if we get predictive and very structured in how distributors succeed, that means most distributors and most direct sales companies are going to have success. Now, besides Walmart, I mean, Walmart was, in my opinion, is earth shattering, and it's like we really need to pay attention because they're a non-internet company. But you already see it happening with YouTubers making their own burgers. 2 months ago, Mr. Beast with his own hamburger, instead of partnering up with McDonald's and Burger King, he launches his own hamburger and sold like 100,000 burgers in the first day. The same thing's happening with TikTok people. They're launching their own skincare line. They're launching their own wellness lines. They're launching their own investor funds. And here's what can happen though. I'm going to encourage you now, hopefully that didn't scare you, but this whole world of business is now starting to believe what we already believe, which is relationships are key. So how do we stay at the forefront and be the tip of the spear? How do we do that? We do it by getting predictive so that we can scale and be competitive against the Walmarts of the world. So now let me leave this with some exciting numbers. I want you to think about how many distributors you have in your company. Let's just say you got 10,000 distributors in your company. Most of you probably have 200,000, but let's say you have 10,000. Out of 10,000 distributors, using the Pareto principle, about 20% will actually follow through and do certain activities every single day, meaning in a day in the life of a distributor. So about 2,000 of your distributors will actually follow through and do it every day. So it's 2,000 out of your 10,000. If they do the minimum, which is 10 a day, which would be your spare time income, 2,000 people doing that at 10 a day is 2,000 times 10. That's 20,000 people being exposed to your business per day through relationships. Do that 5 days a week. That's 100,000 people a week. Do that a month. That's 400,000 people a month. Now, out of the 400,000 people, we know human error. We got to only take 20% of it because there's going to be human error all along the way. So out of that, 80,000 people. We know we can convert 1 in 5 if you do it correctly on social media. You're looking at somewhere between 15 to 17,000 new customers / distributors your company should be getting every month just off of 2,000 people. Now start to trickle those numbers out. As an owner or an executive of a direct sales company, that is how you lock in the power of what is happening in social media so that you stay at the forefront of this and be a powerful company, because the entire world of business is believing in relationships. They're all coming. Walmart, again, was the latest example. They're coming. The entire world of business will be driven by relationships, just like we all love. And so it's important that we get a very predictive approach for our distributors so that we can continue being the leaders.
Yeah, we've said all along, this industry was the original social network, right? Before social media ever came about, right? And it's fueled growth if we've, as we've adopted that. Other brands and companies, verticals, channels are seeing it, and they're trying to maximize it as well. Those are great insights, Jim. We should do another one of these and just let you go for I know I can sense we're just scratching the surface of your knowledge and expertise in that space. I want to just spend a few minutes. We're going to do one last little segment that Jonathan and I will touch on, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A. So I want to make a quick plug for those of you that have questions for either Jonathan or Jim here. Go ahead and just put those into the Q&A piece, and those of you that want to stay around for the Q&A portion certainly can. I want to just quickly highlight a feature within the clients that Jonathan and I both share as it pertains to the direct sales space, and maybe just give some guidance into what we're doing to empower the field while still educating and them through the process of sharing content, while also providing some ways to prevent posts that create exposure inside of Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. So as you can see here, this is one of our clients, a library of social media content, one-to-one shareable content. All of that is right here and available for me to access and share. So if I want to come into one of these pieces of content, I could go in and select the asset that I want to share. And then I could go through the process here of now sharing it, either individually one-to-one through a Facebook message, or I could share it to a Facebook, into my feed on Facebook or Instagram. What this is going to do is if I tap social, and again, what we're doing here is we're leveraging a lot of the software compliance and compliance tool that Jonathan's company at Momentum Factor has, while leveraging our front end and empowering the field to be able to share content effectively. As you can see here in this next step, what we're doing is we're empowering them, and we want them to write a unique message. The more real, the more authentic they are in doing that, they're going to be more effective. So that we provided an image. We also provided a caption here that they can certainly use if they want to, if they use this example message. This is again a way to both empower them to share something, provide them an image, provide them a suggested caption. We will not let them share this as is. We force them to modify and personalize it. If they actually went through that process of trying to share it, it'll actually require them to personalize it. So they could delete content, or they could personalize it and add content. So in this case, I'm going to go through and just show the example of making a claim. So I could say something like, I love this product and how it helps prevent COVID for me and my family.
That's a big one.
Right. So here we go. I'm making this claim. I'm going through the process of now sharing this. What this is going to do is it'll now let me go through. I'm sorry. I actually clicked on the wrong button there. I'm going to go through the process again and just post this. I love these products and how they prevent COVID. I'm going to go to the next step. What this is doing is you can see now that it's checking for compliance. It's going to go out there, and it's out now utilizing Momentum Factor software to go in and say, is there anything in here that might be non-compliant? It now tells me, whoops, looks like your message may have a few items in it that may be non-compliant. You can either continue on or edit it. If you continue on, your team in the compliance department would be notified. Oh, there's a post out there that you guys need to look at. But we're going to now encourage them to go in and actually edit this. And you can see here, it gives them the insights into what are the elements of what is considered non-compliant. So both high-risk words were used in both COVID and prevent in this phrase. So again, I love this because it's helping develop that, overall awareness. We're helping educate the field through the process of sharing. We're preventing this post from ever happening in the first place, of where the exposure is going to happen in Facebook or Instagram. And it just also, for me, also demonstrates the overall commitment as a company to your efforts in providing, really good compliance tools. So with that kind of just shows you an overall, providing the idea of being able to provide a library of content that they can plug into and share. And while we're still leveraging some amazing new technologies that are available to ensure that those types of posts aren't happening, and we're preventing those from happening in the first place. So with that,
what I love about this generally is the preventative nature. It's not meant to be a stop all be all, like let's prevent every single claim from going from a mobile phone to the internet. But it does tell someone, hey, pause a moment. You said these words, and now they've learned they can't say those words. Even if they hit continue, I want to send it anyway, I don't care, which is rare. That will still make it to the compliance department to be able to be followed up with. But really, the educational piece of this is really important as people learn while they post that, hey, this isn't something you can do in real time as well.
Love it.
Yep.
So a couple questions that have come in. I want to just touch on this one first. This one is going to be for you. Let's see. This is going to be for you, Jonathan. What tools or programs are available to a distributor to effectively? Oh, maybe I'll let this one go to Jim, actually, or either of you. I'll just run it by both of you. So, what tools or programs are available to a distributor to effectively implement the type of systemic process or approach that, Jim, you've described? How are people duplicating this effort? What systems are in place to kind of teach? It sounds like this is something that, very savvy networkers that understand the social media space, but how are we duplicating those processes or systems, deep within an organization?
Should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim. I'll let you run that.
That's all you.
Let's see, what tools or programs are available to a distributor to effectively implement this type? So one is we have to fall in love with the idea of a system, and we have to get away from personality training and realized that it is about system. So that way, anyone, no matter what their personality is, no matter what their background is, if they jump into the system, they'll get the same exact result as somebody else that is completely different. And so that's, we all have to believe that first, that you can have something like that. This system, this day in the life is what I created. It's what I've been doing for 26 years. And so one thing that fascinated me early on in my career was I was a distributor 26 years ago, and I was trained, coached by the master distributor, who very, very well known in the industry. His name's Mark Yarnell, very well known in the direct sales industry.
Yep.
And he took me under his wing and he goes, Jim, I'll teach you everything. We would be up to 2 o'clock in the morning, and he would teach me how to do this thing called direct sales. So he taught me a few things, and he taught me this whole thing about conversion of 1 in 20. No matter how good you are, no matter who you are, you'll convert 1 in 20 people to a customer or a distributor. So over the course of the next 2 years, I went and spoke to 12,000 people, because I had no fear at this point, because I realized I'll just follow what Mark says. And I personally enrolled 600 people into my company as a distributor using relationships. There was no cold market involved. And I became a believer then of numbers. I became a believer of relationships.
The law of averages. Yeah.
Yeah. And then over the last 26 years, based on what Mark taught me with life experiences only happening every 6 months, this whole thing with social media, I said to myself, can we get the number down? And so right now I got the number down to 1 out of 5. And with this call and everything that's going on, I would say that keep your eyes open, your ears open, because I'll be doing things with Verb where we'll be making things available for you where you could tap into what I created over the last 26 years. I haven't seen a very structured system up until now. I've seen it based around personality. So there's always been a certain group of people succeeding, but the masses aren't. We just got to get system thinking. And I would say just be looking over the coming months of what I'll be working on with Verb, and you guys be able to get access.
That's exciting. And maybe I'll add some commentary too, as it pertains to how do we help train and educate some of these and what we're seeing with some of our clients. Obviously, dedicating a portion of your virtual and in-person events to where you can leverage, those individuals within your organizations that are actually having success in social media. Give them the time and dedicate that time to be able to leverage. I've been a part of dozens of meetings that I've been to and attended, where you should obviously be leveraging that. We've also seen within LMS experiences and platforms, you can deliver course type content to help educate, and create systems supporting, some of what Jim's describing. Looks like we've got one more question that's come in, and I'm gonna steer this one towards you, Jonathan, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. This one is talking about user-generated content. And that one creates a little bit more, sometimes more challenges are involved there. I will personally say that I believe that both corporate created content and field generated content are both important. And you have to embrace that. And we talked about what we're doing on the corporate side and what we just showed inside of the mobile app that we just showed, empowering them with good content that's compliant, and then giving them insights if they're making a claim through the share process is obviously a best practice. But we also know that user-generated content it works. It's more real, it's more authentic. But what tools and processes are in place to help safeguard a company against potential risk and claims that come from user-generated content?
Well, I think it goes back to education and prevention, right? So making sure that they know that when they do produce their own content, that it's compliant, that it's not going to get them in trouble, that they know the right and wrong keywords that they're using, and then obviously the monitoring on the back end to make sure that whatever goes out there can be followed up with, can be adjudicated, an email can go out, they can get a training, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a whole life cycle, we call it. So you have the prevention, which might be around this app that you showed earlier. You have the education, which is an ongoing process through either in-person at events, online, through their enforcement and compliance side, through marketing, sales, the education being a big piece of it, and then the monitoring, and then the enforcement. Which is, you don't want to be there, but you still need to be there, right? On the enforcement side. It's better to prevent it and educate it, and your field stays happier that way. Your team is less bogged down with claims and such. I emphasize all of those together, not just the monitoring and enforcement.
Yeah, obviously the compliance monitoring through Field Watch is key, right? And having some type of a software solution that's going to help support those compliance efforts from a monitoring standpoint. But I think it gets back to, like you mentioned, kind of the cycle that you're teaching and you've taught for years is embracing the culture, training, educating the field. All of those efforts are great. Well, this has been awesome. Again, just kind of a recap. We know social media works. We've seen it. I personally have seen a lot of the companies that we work with that have gone from zero to a couple $100 million in revenue, largely because of their social media presence and empowering their field to use it effectively. And it's been fun to kind of see two sides of it. Jim, what you're seeing in the space, what's working, and what are the trends there, and then Jonathan, you kind of bring that perspective as well as obviously the compliance side of it and your knowledge and expertise there. So we appreciate both of you. We'll have to get together again and maybe do this again, maybe a second edition, and where we can dig a little deeper into some of these topics. But we want to thank everybody. We know you're busy. We are going to make this available in the format of a replay. So we'll get that out to everybody, and you can share that with your teams and other individuals that you think could find some value. But Jim and Jonathan, thanks again. We appreciate you, and we appreciate again everyone that had spent the time to spend the last hour with us. We appreciate you, and look forward to doing this again. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Everyone.
Bye, JJ.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Jim.